The first time anyone noticed her, it was because of what she didn't do. The range opened at 0700, but by 0645 she was already seated on the weathered bench near lane 10, always lane 10. No earbuds. No phone. Just a battered canvas tote resting at her feet and a stainless steel thermos hugged loosely in her fingers. The steam that curled from the cap smelled faintly of black tea and something like old lavender. She never fired a shot. Not once. Just sat there every Tuesday, calm and still, like part of the gravel beneath her boots. Some thought she was someone's grandmother waiting for a ride. Others guessed she might be a widow who couldn't let go of a memory. But after 6 Tuesdays in a row, the staff stopped wondering and started giving her space. Until that morning. The sun was already climbing the spine of the distant ridge, casting long shadows across the shooting lanes. A pair of young trainees, National Guard maybe, were arguing over grouping patterns 2 lanes down. One of them, bright-eyed and overly caffeinated, kept flinching with each trigger pull. She didn't say a word. Just stood up, walked over, and tapped him gently on the shoulder. The whole range fell quiet, not because she interrupted, but because of how she did it. She adjusted his elbow first, then shifted his wrist. Finally, she stepped behind him and placed 2 fingers lightly at the base of his spine. Silent, precise, practiced. "Exhale on squeeze," she said. That was it. 3 words. Then she stepped back and returned to her bench without waiting to see the result. But the trainee hit center mass on the next 5 rounds. Every one of them. That's when Jared, the range instructor and former SEAL, took notice. He'd seen a lot in his time. Posers with badges, real-deal ghosts who vanished after coffee, and old-timers who never spoke unless a bolt needed tightening. But there was something in the way she moved, subtle muscle memory, unforced posture, a calm that didn't ask for space but commanded it. He waited until break, then approached her with his best non-threatening smile. "Ma'am, I'm Jared. You military?" She didn't answer right away. Just poured another slow sip from her thermos, eyes fixed on the horizon. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but edged with something granite hard. "Not anymore." Jared nodded, respecting the line she'd drawn, but he couldn't help noticing what she wore. A faded field jacket, sleeves rolled to the forearms, and on the wrist, barely visible beneath the fray of fabric, a thin black band with silver embossing. He'd seen that kind of band before. "Who was it?" he asked gently, nodding toward the bracelet. Her eyes met his for the first time. No tears, no drama. "Not who." "What?" Before he could ask what she meant, a call came over the PA system, a misfire report in lane 3. Jared was gone in seconds, but his mind stayed with her the rest of the morning. Back on her bench, she pulled a worn leather notebook from the canvas tote. Flipped to a page marked with graphite fingerprints and ghosted ink. On it, a hand-sketched diagram, crosshair alignment, breath cycle, heart rate drop timing. No name. No rank. No insignia. But the bottom corner held something no one saw that day, a small, faded photo. Black and white. Grainy. 3 snipers. One woman in the middle, not holding a rifle, but guiding the hands of the man who did. And just visible in the corner of the photo, a wall calendar from 1973. Denam. The sound of gunfire returned to the range, but none of it disturbed her. Because she wasn't watching the targets. She was listening, to breath, to rhythm, to memories no one else could hear anymore. And the thing about people like her? They don't come back to relive the past. They come back to see who's ready to carry it next. Jared didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't the misfire incident, those were standard. It was her. The way she touched the shooter's elbow, the way she whispered that one correction like she'd whispered it 1,000 times before. Not a coach. Not a trainer. Something deeper. He booted up the range database sometime after midnight. The only description he had to go on was, "Woman, 60s, Tuesday mornings, lane 10. The logbook didn't help. She never signed in. Just nodded to the clerk and walked in like she belonged there, which, in hindsight, should have been his first clue. He called in a favor. Retired Gunnery Sergeant Bill Mathers still did contract work at the range twice a month. Jared caught him over breakfast the next morning. "She ever say anything to you?" Jared asked, pushing his eggs aside. Bill smirked into his coffee. "Nah. But she doesn't need to. That woman's spine is straighter than most young grunts I've seen. You don't sit like that unless your life once depended on it. You think she's former military?" Bill raised an eyebrow. "I think she trained the military." That thought sat with Jared the rest of the day like a stone in his boot. By the time Tuesday rolled around again, Jared wasn't the only one watching her. Lane 10 had become a kind of quiet zone. No one used it. No one tried to sit near it. They just observed. That day, she brought something new, an old range bag that looked like it had survived a war. And in it, a folded towel, a small toolkit, and a rifle. Not just any rifle. A long-range bolt-action Remington 700, customized to an absurd level. Bipod extended, scope capped, finish dulled with age. It wasn't a showcase weapon, it was a working rifle. A trusted rifle. Jared, leaning against the counter, kept his eyes on her as she unpacked. She handled it with the kind of care he'd only seen from operators who named their rifles. She didn't fire it. Just set it on the bench, checked the scope, adjusted the stock, then sat beside it like she was waiting for someone to arrive. Or return. And that's when it happened. A young Army recruit, maybe 19, overly confident, wandered over to Lane 9. His friends dared him to ask the sniper lady for a tip. So he swaggered up with that kind of grin people grow before they get humbled. "Hey, ma'am, mind if I ask who taught you how to shoot?" She didn't look at him. Instead, she asked one question. "You ever miss a shot when it mattered?" The recruit blinked. I mean, yeah, probably." She turned her head slowly, eyes calm but hard. "Then you're asking the wrong question." The recruit fell silent. His friends didn't laugh. And Jared, watching from 20 feet away, started to understand. This wasn't just a former sniper or an old range junkie. This woman had been something, not loud, not decorated, but essential. He couldn't help himself. After the recruit slunk away, Jared approached. "She always that direct?" he asked, nodding toward the kid. She shrugged. "People ask questions they think sound brave. I give them answers they remember." "Fair enough." Jared paused. "Look, I don't mean to pry, but you ever train anyone I might know?" She didn't answer. But she did reach into her bag and pull out a laminated photo, pressed between two pieces of plastic, doggered with time. She handed it to him without a word. It was a grainy image. A dirt range somewhere overseas. 5 men in full ghillie suits. And standing behind them, barely visible, was a young woman. Same stance. Same eyes. Jared knew the man in the center. Sergeant Major Elias Rayburn. Retired now. Quiet. Decorated beyond belief. "You trained Rayburn?" he whispered. She took the photo back. "I taught him how to breathe." It was all she said. But it was all he needed to hear. Jared didn't press. Just nodded and stepped away, understanding, finally, that some stories weren't told. They were inherited. Through posture. Through breath. Through the kind of silence that speaks louder than medals ever could. Back at the bench, she sat down again beside her rifle, hands folded. She still hadn't taken a shot. Because that rifle wasn't there to hit paper. It was there to remember someone who had. The news didn't spread fast, but it spread quiet. Not through chatter or gossip, but through posture. Through nods exchanged between range officers, through the subtle way recruits started pausing before Lane 10, straightening up like they were about to be evaluated by someone whose judgment meant something. The woman hadn't given a name. She hadn't shared a record. But within 2 weeks, they'd stopped calling her the sniper lady. Now she was just, "Ma'am." No one knew her rank. No one dared to guess. That week, Jared made a call to Rayburn. It took 3 tries, and a favor pulled from years ago, but the old man finally answered in that flat, gravel-soaked voice of his. "Rayburn," Jared began. "You ever train with a woman, long time ago? Taught breath control like it was gospel?" There was silence on the other end. Then, "You saw her?" Jared froze. "So she's real?" Rayburn exhaled. "More real than half the legends out there." "Who is she?" "I don't know her real name. We just called her Thistle. Said it fit. Small, quiet, sharp enough to draw blood if you weren't careful." There was a pause. Then Rayburn added, softer this time. "She taught me more in 4 hours than most did in 4 years. Not just how to shoot. How to watch. How to wait. How to mean it." Jared hung up, feeling like he just glimpsed the edge of some quiet myth. That Friday it rained. Not a downpour, but the kind of steady, drizzling mist that gets in your collar and makes even the steel of the range benches feel tired. Still, she showed up. Same time. Same bench. Same thermos. But this time, she set the rifle on the table. Opened the bolt. Placed one round beside it. Then she waited. Jared approached with respect in his steps. No questions this time. She slid the round across the bench toward him. "You shoot." "I what?" "One shot. Don't miss. Not because it'll disappoint me, but because you'll understand why it matters." It wasn't a challenge. It was a lesson. Jared picked up the rifle. Adjusted his footing. Tried to remember every breath technique he'd ever been taught. And yet, he felt like a child again, fumbling for calm in front of someone whose calm was absolute. He squeezed. One shot. Dead center. He looked back. She wasn't watching the target. Just the rifle. "You breathe out too fast," she said softly. "Still hit. But not because of you. Because she forgives." She? The rifle. That was the moment Jared understood. This wasn't training. This wasn't mentorship. This was stewardship. She was passing something on, not a tactic, but a philosophy. Later that day, she finally spoke to one of the recruits who lingered near the bench. "Why do you all come to Lane 10? She asked, not accusing, just curious. The young man shuffled. "Ma'am, we figured you'd teach us something." She nodded. "I might. Or you might just listen long enough to hear yourself think for once." No one laughed. No one moved. Then she added, almost like a whisper, "The target doesn't matter. It's the space between the breath and the trigger. That's where you live. That's where your discipline sits." On her way out that day, Jared caught her before she reached the truck. "Thistle," he said gently. She paused, not surprised. "That's what they called you, isn't it?" She tilted her head slightly. "Only the ones who knew to ask." He held out something, her old laminated photo, now copied and preserved. "Would you ever consider teaching again?" "Officially." She stared at the photo. Her eyes didn't soften. They sharpened. "I never stopped." That was the last Tuesday she came. The week after, Lane 10 was empty. The thermos never reappeared. No trace of her remained, except a single bullet casing, polished clean, left in the tray. Beside it, a folded note written in perfect block lettering. "Control the breath. The rest will follow." Jared had it framed. And from that week on, Lane 10 wasn't just another lane. It was reserved, not in policy, but in presence. Recruits still shoot there. But they take their time. They breathe slower. Because once, someone showed them what it means when silence teaches. She never wanted applause. Not then. Not now. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't wear rank or demand attention. It doesn't post, brag, or look for lights. It just is. Quiet. Steady. Patient like erosion, wearing down the world's noise until only truth remains. Her rifle wasn't legendary because of its precision. It was because of the care she gave it, the history etched in the wear of the grip, the trust it earned in her hands. And now, it rests somewhere unknown. Maybe oiled and sealed in a quiet closet. Maybe passed on to someone who's ready. maybe even buried. But the lessons, those linger. In the pause before breath. In the calm behind the eyes of a shooter. In the silence that falls on a firing line when someone new arrives, and carries that same stillness. Because stories like hers don't end. They echo. In posture. In stillness. In that long, unbroken discipline that marks those who don't need to explain themselves. So if you're ever on a range and the guy next to you fires just once every minute, not rushing, not wasting, barely blinking, watch his stance. He might not be military. He might never say a word. But someone taught him how to breathe. And chances are, it was someone like her.